What if I were to tell you that there are 6 types of breakups that are most likely to get back together? Is that something you'd be interested in? Well, today, that's what we're going to be talking about. I've gone through my entire website, my entire podcast library, my entire success story library to see which breakups are the most common and easiest to have success in. And for those of you who are actually avid readers of my website, this discussion is going to be similar to my discussion on the types of breakups ranked by recovery time, with a few major shifts, because we're really looking at the types of breakups here that have the most success as opposed to recovery time. So buckle up and pay attention, because as always, there's a lot to talk about here. So the first type of breakup is what I consider to be the on-again, off-again breakup. And perhaps the most common type of breakup that I actually see getting back together is this one in which a couple is caught in the on-again, off-again cycle. And for reference, I'd actually like to point you to my relationship death wheel graphic. Now, if you're listening to this on a podcast, then this is going to be a little hard for you to visualize. If you're watching this on YouTube, hey, great, here's the visual. But basically, for those listening and for those watching, there are 8 stages to this cycle. You know, your ex starts off wanting someone to love them. Then they find you and they think that their troubles are over. Then they notice some worrying things about you. Then they start thinking of leaving. Then they actually leave the relationship. Then they feel happy that they left. They start to feel kind of lonely. They feel bad for themselves and wonder why this always happens to them. And that's just one revolution of the wheel. And it's best to think of it like this. Each revolution around this wheel is another on-again and off-again phase. You see, the challenge with breakups like this isn't so much if you can get an ex back, it's more about if you can stop the off-again phase from occurring. So let's move on to our next type of breakup. Type number 2, you breaking up with them. Now, I'd love to be able to sit up here in my high tower and say that it doesn't matter who broke up with who on the outset of a breakup. And for the most part, that is sort of true. It's not a huge advantage, but I said for the most part, which means there is some truth to the statement. If you were the one that ended the relationship with your ex, you're going to find it a tad bit easier to get them back. And perhaps no one personifies this better than Jesse, one of the very first success story interviews that I did. You can see this because if you go back to the article I wrote about time frames, then you'd see that her situation was ranked as the quickest success, only taking her a total of 1 month before she reconnected with her now husband. Now, why is that? Well, there's obviously more to it than the fact that she was the one to break up with him. However, I do think that was a big part of the speed, and it's due to the fact that she was the one who, in essence, rejected him. And as much as I hate to bring this up, the age-old adage of men want what they can't have, well, it sort of holds true. So that's the second type of breakup, one where you break up with them. The third type of breakup is being left while you are pregnant. So while Jessie may have been my first success story interview, she wasn't my first actual success story. In fact, my first actual success story was a woman named Ashley, and it occurred before this website or ex-boyfriend recovery was even in existence. See, Ashley sat next to me in a college class, and we struck up a friendship. Nothing romantic, pretty platonic. She already had a boyfriend. And when I say she had a boyfriend, I mean she loved this guy. So much, in fact, that when he got a job 3 hours away, she dropped out of college, followed him, and moved in together with him. So I don't hear from her for months until one day, near the end of the semester, out of the blue, I get a call from her. Her boyfriend had broken up with her. That sucks, but life moves on, right? You make a mistake, follow this guy, doesn't work out, whatever, you can pick up. Well, the next day she calls me again and says she just found out that she's pregnant. She begs me to help her win him back, and thus, ex-boyfriend recovery was born. It took her 7 months before she got him back and taught me a valuable lesson. See, there's a certain allure that men have to pregnant women. Sure, they panic and run away at first, but that's their baby. And most do come back at some point. Take Rachel, another one of our clients who got pregnant with her ex's baby. She got her ex back. And what's interesting is when she got her ex back, after she had the baby, she kind of didn't want him back anymore. I have 2 kids, so I can kind of speak to this fear. It's pretty scary to find out when your significant other is pregnant with your child. And I'm married saying that. Your whole life is about to change, and some men, cowards, run away from that responsibility. They fall victim to the fear of the moment, but after time sort of settles things, you'll find that most men kind of want to come back. The problem is, by the time that happens, most women, like the example I just gave of Rachel, they're kind of soured from the whole experience. And that leads us next to type number 4, the grass is greener breakup. Now, for this one, I like to refer once again to my relationship death wheel graphic. Now, remember, this is breaking down the experience of a relationship from a dumper's perspective, and every single time it ends up usually in the exact same place, which is stage number 8. The dumper feeling, why can't I ever find the right person? Now, this leads most exes to a crossroads. So they have two choices. They can either try again with you, or they can either try again with someone else. But what happens if your ex always planned to try again with someone else? What happens if they got the hots for this person while they were with you? And the entire time during phase number 4, the I'm thinking of leaving phase, they're thinking about this other person. They're planning to be with this other person. This is what I would call a grass is greener situation. They literally think the grass is greener on the other side. But it's important to remember that all rebound relationships start off that way. It's also important to remember they are still caught up in their own death wheel, right at stages 1 and 2. The I want someone to love me and I found someone, my troubles are over. But what happens when they hit stage 3 with this new person? The I'm noticing some worrying things. They start comparing that new partner to you, and then all of a sudden you look like the more attractive candidate. That's why this type of breakup has made the list. I see this happen all the time. So the next breakup, type number 5, is the evolutionary breakup. This one is more internal than any of the other ones. So with the OnAgain OffAgain sort of situational type breakup, it is a situational type breakup. With the situation where you broke up with them, once again, you have a situational type breakup. You are pregnant, situational. Grass is greener, situational, maybe circumstance, I don't know. Situational, whatever. All I'm trying to say is that this breakup, type number 5, is different from all the others. I've been doing this since 2012, so 10 years. And in that time, I've had tens of thousands of people purchase my programs or buy a coaching session. I've had thousands of people find success with their exes. And with all that data, with all that time, I can confidently say that the most important factor for winning an ex back is your ability to outgrow your ex during a breakup, your ability to evolve, to get to a place where you kind of don't want them back anymore. People who have had that subtle mindset shift tend to do great. People who don't have that mindset shift, well, they tend not to do great. And that leads us to our final breakup, type number 6, the Zgarnic Breakup. And one of the strategies that I'm famous for propagating is something called the Zgarnic Effect, which states people remember interrupted or incomplete tasks better than completed ones. Now, often you'll hear me use this in conjunction with how I believe my clients should be ending conversations with their exes. You end a conversation at a high point, and your ex is more likely to start the next conversation because it'll feel like there's unfinished business. Well, what if I were to tell you that there's actually an entire segment of breakups that end this way? I'll use the lowest hanging example I can think of. You and your ex date for 8 months, and it's glorious. No major fights. The connection is off the charts. The two of you just seem to be in lockstep with one another. And then your ex's boss transfers him out of state. Your ex, not believing in long-distance relationships, decides that the two of you should break up. There's nothing wrong with your relationship. Circumstances simply forced his hand. There's unfinished business that the two of you have. One can apply the Zeigarnik Effect to the whole of your relationships. Situations like these I've found to be some of the best situations for success because while the Zeigarnik Effect is meant to be applied to a small scale, things like conversations or dates, it can also have applications to large-scale things, like entire relationships. If you and your ex have unfinished business, then this bodes well for your success.